The long-awaited time has come. We have the 2.7-liter EcoBoost engine, and we are going to put it to the test today. We have my enclosed trailer hooked up to this truck, and we're going to tow 120 miles through the Appalachian Mountains to see what this engine is all about. Welcome back, I'm Alex, and well, this 2.7-liter engine was somewhat difficult to track down, but we got her because you guys have been absolutely hounding me, telling me that this engine will blow me away while towing. So looking forward to that. Typically with my 8,000-pound enclosed trailer, it usually sits around 80 to 90% of the max towing capacity of the 1,500 trucks I tow with. Today, however, this trailer is sitting at 106% of this 2.7 liters max towing capacity. So we are literally maxing this engine out and some. But Alex, that's unfair to overload this engine. Well, life's not fair, fellas. And this is the exact same trailer that I use and tow with every single 1,500 in the segment. So in order to get a fair comparison, to me, it's only reasonable that I use this same 8,000-pound trailer. And well, I guess it's time for this 2.7 liter to either put up or shut up. Speaking of the beast, this is her right here, 8,000 pounds, maximum wind resistance, and well, we use the same water weights in the same location, giving us the exact same tongue weights. We also tow the exact same 120-mile towing loop through the Appalachian Mountains, and that gives a really nice comparison between truck and engine when it comes to things like acceleration, fuel economy, pulling hills, and just generally how the truck handles this load. Earlier in the summer, I towed with GM's 2.7 liter Turbo Max engine, and well, that felt a little bit underpowered. We're starting to really struggle a little bit. We're on a pretty much a flat stretch, and this thing is just at 4,000 RPM. As well as drinking a ton of fuel, almost 40 liters per 100 kilometers with this exact same 8,000-pound trailer. So I'm really excited to see how this 2.7 liter engine compares to GM's Turbo Max. Under the hood here, we have a twin turbocharged V6 engine putting out a respectable 325 horsepower as well as 400 pound-feet of torque. And don't make the mistake thinking that this engine is the 3.5 liter engine's little brother. This engine, aka the Nano, almost shares 0 parts with that larger 3.5 liter EcoBoost. And in my opinion, this engine is built far superior than that 3.5 liter EcoBoost, but we'll talk more about that in just a bit. I figured we get the ball rolling here. Our first test is our off-the-line acceleration test. We go 0 to 50 kilometers an hour, put the truck in four-wheel drive, and see how fast we can get there. It's a great test to see how this engine transfers its torque to the wheels to get that load moving. 3, 2, 1, to the floor. $50. Take 2, 3, 2, 1, to the floor. Once that boost hits, my gosh, 50. Well, those EcoBoost engines are quick, beating the Turbo Max as well as some of the larger displacement V8s. One thing to consider is that this engine comes standard with 355 gears, which is a little bit more advantageous than most of the gears that we have used with all of these trucks. So just keep that in mind. So just before we hit the highway, driving around in town, this engine's not bad, not terrible at all. Once you get up to speed, you're okay. But as we sit at a stop sign here, you kind of really have to put your foot into it to get this truck and trailer to move. Once the turbo spools up and you get boost, no problem whatsoever. But until you hit that boost, you kind of have like a dead accelerator pedal. It almost feels like something that a natural aspirated V8 just doesn't have. You get power right there, great throttle response. That's the word I'm looking for. The throttle response in town is just a little bit lacking, but with a 2.7 liter displacement engine, I think it just kind of comes with the territory. So that'd be my one complaint. Coming onto the highway, we have our second acceleration test. We go 60 to 110 kilometers an hour. 60 to the floor. $90. $110. Once again, we see this engine come out on top of some bigger displacement V8s, as well as the 2.7 liter Turbo Max, which seemingly fell off a cliff on this acceleration test.
Well, it's a beautiful fall day, excellent for towing. We got our cruise control set at 110 kilometers an hour like we always do in tow haul mode, and we'll let the truck do its thing. The first thing I'm looking for is actually fuel economy. With the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, it towed extremely well, but the fuel economy was atrocious, over 40 liters per 100 kilometers. The 2.7 liter TurboMax from GM was not far off, finishing with just under 40 liters per 100 kilometers. We are averaging 39.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which is a lot more than what I thought. I really want to see what this turbocharged engine is going to do for fuel economy. Hopefully we can shave some of those big numbers off. The second thing that I'm interested in is just how comfortable this engine is with this much load at these speeds. Again, the 2.7 liter TurboMax from GM just felt a little bit overmatched. 5,000 RPM. This thing is humming. And with this engine also having only 2.7 liters of displacement, I don't expect it to blow anybody away, but I want to see if this engine is a little bit more comfortable with this load behind it. So we shall see. And honestly, right off the hop, we're 22 kilometers in, you know, we're sitting in 9th gear, we're under 2,000 RPM. The engine does feel rather comfortable, but we'll see. Our fuel economy is looking decent, but again, we'll see. Up front here, we have our first just little hill. It just gives us a little sneak preview of how these engines are going to react for the bigger hills. So we'll see. There we go. We're already 4,000 RPM, 5th gear. Let's see if we downshift again. Decent. Yeah, I don't think we're going to downshift. The 2.7 liter TurboMax, we were above 5,000 RPM. So pretty nice start so far for this engine.
If I was forced to buy a turbo gas engine in a pickup truck, this 2.7 liter would be the engine I would buy. When I first reviewed this EcoBoost engine, I was fairly impressed with how strong Ford has built this platform. And again, it is completely different than the 3.5 liter EcoBoost. We have a compacted graphite iron block, the same material used on the 6.7 liter Power Stroke. The main caps are casted with the engine block and then fractured, which is literally about the strongest union between two pieces of metal you can get. We have offset connecting rods, which again employ fractured rod caps. So the rotating assembly on this engine is extremely strong, and none of which is on the 3.5 liter EcoBoost. Ford said they wanted to try and mimic diesel-like performance out of a gas engine, and well, they put diesel-like bowl pistons in this engine, diesel-like connecting rods, as well as extremely high cylinder pressures, which are also usually seen in diesel engines. All of which is rather impressive out of a mid-tier engine. Lastly, this engine is a square engine, meaning that the bore and the stroke are the same size, something we don't typically see out of a V6. And this allows for great versatility when it comes to low-end torque, but also high-end performance. Now, no engine is perfect, and this engine does have some faults, which I did make a video about, so check that out if you're more interested. I also just talked about the recent recall with this engine that dropped earlier in September, about the intake valves cracking, so I will link that video down below as well. But for a turbocharged engine, I am pretty bullish on this platform.
We're on our first hill here, currently sitting in 6th gear at 3,400 RPM, 110 kilometers an hour. Rather impressive. The 5 liter V8 from Ford sat right around the same RPM. So did the 6.2 liter V8 from GM. The 2.7 liter TurboMax, which we are specifically looking at today from GM, sat at about 4,100 RPM. You know, this engine is faring pretty well right out of the gate here. Update on our fuel economy, pretty interesting. We're 52 kilometers in. We're currently sitting at 31.9 liters per 100 kilometers. This far into our towing run, that is currently one of the most efficient, if not the most efficient engines I've towed with. Again, we're only a quarter of the way in. We got a lot more runway ahead of us, but that is very, very interesting. Next up is our transmission temp, currently sitting at 99 degrees Celsius, pretty much in the middle of the pack there. So far, this little engine's been actually pretty impressive. We got our second hill coming up here. We'll see how she fares. 3,400 RPM, 6th gear, 106. I think we need a downshift here, Ford. There we go. 4,000 RPM, 5th gear, 110. Pretty respectable out of a very small engine. This engine is not struggling whatsoever, despite being overloaded and having a massive wind frontage of drag behind this truck. It just, you know, we're cruising at 2,000 RPM down the highway at 110 kilometers an hour. It's just, yeah, it's having no issues.
Now, despite this engine putting out some rather decent power figures, the max tow ratings are relatively low. Like I mentioned, we are a little bit overweight on this towing run. So with the 10-speed crew cab 4x4 with 355 gears in this truck, we have a max tow rating of only 7,500 pounds. I do find that interesting for a number of reasons. When looking at the competition, the 2.7 liter Turbo Max from GM, that truck in a crew cab 4x4 configuration has a max tow rating of 9,000 pounds. And when looking at the power outputs of the Turbo Max versus this 2.7 liter, they are well within the same ballpark. And even looking at the driveline of that 2.7 liter Turbo Max, it comes with 2 less gears, only an 8-speed transmission, as well as less advantageous gearing. It comes with 342 gears versus 355s, yet it comes with an extra 1,500 pounds of towing capability. But the 2.7 liter Turbo Max on my towing loop with that 8,000 pound trailer, which was within its max tow rating, did seem to have a tough time towing it. So far on our run, this 2.7 liter engine has been actually rather impressive. So again, the low tow rating is interesting.
Here's another hill, 3,400 RPM. There we go, 5th gear, 4,000-ish RPM, coming up to speed. It is pretty impressive. Again, I do want to make it clear, this is a small displacement engine. It's not going to blow your socks off, but for what this engine is and its size, being able to tow this 8,000 pound trailer, again, with so much wind resistance and really not even be bothered by it. I mean, again, 4,000 RPM, any V8, most V8s are going to be revving like this on this same stretch of road, except they have twice the displacement. Ahead of us, we have the Meduktuk, the biggest hill on our towing loop. This is for all the marbles. Here we go. Downshift, 6th gear, 108. There we go, 110 kilometers an hour. Pretty impressive that we're at 4,000 RPM. The 2.7 liter Turbo Max was about 5,200 RPM. The numbers don't lie. This engine is currently more fuel efficient and handles this load much better than the rival 2.7 liter Turbo Max from GM. Here's another example, going up a hill. You know, currently we're in 8th gear, which is an overdrive gear. Downshift, 6th gear, 3,400 RPM. We're back up to speed. And there's just nothing to it. But the fact that we're overloaded and we just go up that with zero problem is impressive. We are sitting at 34.1 liters per 100 kilometers. By no means our best fuel economy, but for a turbocharged engines, when looking at the other fuel economy results with those turbo engines, this is pretty darn impressive. If you haven't figured out already, I'm pretty impressed with this 2.7 liter EcoBoost. I just don't know what bad things you can say about it in terms of its towing performance today on my towing loop. I think partly because the expectations out of this engine are already rather low. It's a base model engine. The max towing capacity is only 7,500 pounds and we are towing 8,000 pounds. So you would think that this engine is just gonna struggle all the way down the road, and it didn't. I'm not gonna say it thrived on the highway, but it was just a seamless experience and it just got the job done. At the end of the day, if you know you're gonna be towing a heavy trailer, I would recommend getting a bigger, more powerful engine. But if you do have this 2.7 liter Turbo Max and you do need to tow a heavy load every now and again, this engine will do it just fine.
Well, there you go. The 2.7 liter EcoBoost is no joke. Let me know what you guys think. Do you own one of these engines? Do you tow with it? What's your experience been like? Is it as good as mine or potentially worse? Let me know. If you did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And well, if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe because we always have cool stuff planned. Anyways, enough of me. We'll see you on the next freaking video.